Welcome to The Deep Dive. Today we're jumping straight into The 7-Day Startup by Dan Norris. You brought this one up, keen to understand how to really get a business idea off the ground quickly, test it out without getting lost in months of planning.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to pull out the essential strategies, give you some concrete, actionable steps, hopefully so you can feel confident taking that initial leap.
Yeah, absolutely. And the core message Norris pushes really is that you learn by doing. You've got to ship something, get it in front of actual paying customers fast.
Okay.
We'll dig into why that urgency is so crucial. It's not just speed for speed's sake, and also flag some common pitfalls to watch out for.
And for you listening, if you're trying to absorb this stuff quickly but thoroughly, this book offers a pretty practical roadmap. We'll focus on the insights that might give you those aha
Yeah,
moments.
definitely.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Why this massive urgency to launch?
Well, Norris is super direct about it. He says you don't learn until you launch. It's pretty blunt,
Ah,
but it gets right to it. All the theory, the surveys, market research, it tells you something. But real validation, that only happens when you have a live product, people using it, and crucially paying for it.
it's like the market is the ultimate teacher, isn't it? You can read the textbook, but the real test is when you actually put something out there.
Totally.
Norris mentions this huge forgotten void between idea and successful business that validation doesn't account for. What's in that void?
Well, I think it's the messy reality, right? Idea validation might tell you people like your concept, maybe they say they'd use it.
Right, the classic, oh yeah, that's a great idea response.
Exactly. But that doesn't prepare you for actually building it, delivering it, supporting customers, figuring out pricing, actually selling it. Launching forces you into all that practical stuff immediately. That's where the real learning curve is.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about that fear? Wanting everything to be perfect before showing it to anyone? I mean, that stops a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
Norris talks about the minimum viable product, the MVP, but he adds a key point. It needs to be viable, not just minimum.
Viable, not just minimum. But...
Yeah, it has to actually work and deliver some core value to those first users. Even if it's basic, even if it's missing features you plan later, the key is resisting that urge to perfect it endlessly before launch.
So the takeaway is figure out what you can realistically do manually at the start. Don't get stuck trying to build complex automated systems right away.
Precisely. Get something out there. See how people really use it. Learn from that. Automation and optimization can come later, driven by actual needs, not just assumptions.
Okay, so let's say you buy into the rapid launch idea. How do you find the right idea for this approach? Norris has a checklist, right? Specifically for bootstrapped businesses.
He does. And the first point is maybe a bit surprising.
Yeah.
The daily tasks should be enjoyable.
Enjoyable. Why is that so high up?
His argument is about sustainability. He literally says, you should be more excited about Monday than you are about Friday. If the core work feels like a chore, well, pushing through the tough times, which will happen, becomes way harder.
So your own motivation is actually a strategic factor.
Kind of, yeah. Then there's product founder fit. It's not explicitly on the checklist maybe, but it's woven through. Your skills, your interests, they should align with what you're building.
Makes sense. It ties back to enjoying the daily grind, doesn't it? If you care about the problem or the work itself.
You're more likely to stick with it, bring passion, than a scalable business model. This is key. He warns against just creating another job for yourself.
Right, he says, anyone can create a job for themselves, but not everyone can change the world. Bit dramatic maybe, but the point is...
The point is potential for growth beyond just you. Can it become bigger than your own direct effort? Can you build systems?
Okay, and related to that, the next point.
Yeah.
It should operate profitably without the founder eventually.
Yeah, this is about building a real business, not just self-employment, something that has its own legs.
So you should be thinking, even early on, how could this work if I wasn't doing every single thing?
Exactly. How can systems or team members eventually take over parts of it? Then next, building an asset you can sell.
Ah, so thinking long-term value.
Right. Not just project work, but something with lasting worth. He highlights things like a list of customers that pay you every month is an asset. It shifts the focus to recurring value. Yes, it's a really good question. If you work on this idea for 5 years, what will you have in the end?
That's a sobering thought. Okay, what else?
Large market potential. Pretty straightforward. You need enough potential customers for growth.
Makes sense.
And then tapping into pain or pleasure differentiators. Basically solve problems people are already paying to solve.
Crucial. He says, Solve problems where people are already paying for solutions. Don't just rely on people saying it's a cool idea.
Yeah, you need proof they'll open their wallets. Look for where money is already changing hands related to that problem. Got it. What's next?
A unique lead generation advantage. How are you going to find customers differently or more effectively than others?
So your specific marketing angle or channel.
Could be. Maybe a niche audience you get, a specific platform, an existing network, something that gives you an edge in reaching people.
And finally, crucially for this whole concept,
The ability to launch quickly. Has to be something you can realistically get out the door in that 7-day time frame.
which means maybe holding back on the grand vision initially.
Definitely. Norris says, playing the visionary is a privilege reserved for second and third-time entrepreneurs. For your first rodeo, focus on execution. Get it done.
Okay, solid checklist. So you use that, you land on an idea, but then comes the hard part, getting actual paying customers. Norris makes a big deal about this, doesn't he? The difference between emails and actual money.
Oh, huge. This is where wishful thinking can really trip people up. He's crystal clear. There's a very big difference between someone entering their email and someone paying you each month for a product.
Interest versus commitment. Exactly. An email sign-up shows curiosity. A paying customer shows they see real value, enough to part with cash. One is validation light, the other is the real deal.
And he says you have to be relentless about getting those paying customers, right? Not just doing the marketing stuff you like doing.
Yeah, you have to relentlessly pursue your best method of getting customers and not the stuff you naturally gravitate to. It's about focusing on what actually drives revenue, even if it's uncomfortable. That's what proves your business works.
Okay, so let's get into the framework itself. The 7-day startup. Break down the week for us.
Right. Day one, brainstorming, but then rigorously applying that checklist we just talked about. Evaluating, comparing, and then crucially choosing the best fit for this rapid launch. Make a call.
Okay, choose the horse. Day 2.
Day 2 is definition day. Define exactly what that day 7 launch looks like, what features are in, what's explicitly out for now, what will you do manually at first versus trying to automate. Get super specific about the MVP.
Crystal clear scope. Got it. Day 3.
Day 3 is naming and domain. Choose a simple, easy-to-say name. Norris suggests aiming for under 12 characters, maybe something a bit broad, and grab that domain name immediately.
Practical stuff. Day 4.
Build the website. Basic, functional. Doesn't need to be a masterpiece. Just needs to exist online, explain the offer, and have a way for people to sign up or pay. Speed over perfection.
Functional, not fancy. Day 5.
Plan your initial marketing attack. What are you going to do in that first week or two after launch to get those first eyeballs and hopefully first customers? Choose your channels.
So have a plan ready before you launch. Day 6.
Surprisingly practical. Build a basic spreadsheet. Track signups, revenue, costs, maybe some simple growth projections. Get your numbers organized from the absolute start.
Don't ignore the numbers. Good advice. And day 7.
Day 7 is launch day. But it's not the end. It's the beginning. You hit the go button, and then you immediately start executing that marketing plan from day 5. Start talking to users.
Which leads us right into marketing and mindset. Norris lists a bunch of methods: content, email, podcasts, forums.
Yeah, he lists options. But the key isn't doing them all. It's choosing a couple that make sense for you and executing relentlessly and watching what happens.
He says, momentum is a powerful force, so keep an eye out for what is working and do more of it.
Exactly. Be ready to adapt. If something's getting traction, double down. If something's falling flat, maybe pivot your effort. It's about learning fast.
And he has that grounding quote about excitement.
Oh yeah. Save your excitement until you land people you don't know as customers. It brings it back to real, objective validation. Friends saying, cool idea is nice, but strangers paying. That's business validation.
It keeps you honest.
Totally. And he also hammers home the learning aspect. The only way to win is to learn faster than anyone else and setting high standards.
Right. Anytime you feel yourself wondering if what you are doing is good enough, compare it to the best. Don't benchmark against mediocrity.
It pushes you. It prevents complacency. Okay, so stepping back slightly, Norris also brings in a longer-term view, even with this fast start.
Yeah, back to that asset question. If you work on this idea for 5 years, what will you have in the end? Thinking beyond the launch week.
Right. Is this building towards something substantial? And he adds a really practical piece of wisdom, maybe learned the hard way.
Which is?
No amount of money is worth working with a difficult customer.
Ooh, yeah. Protecting your sanity and energy is important for the long haul.
Absolutely. Don't let one bad client derail everything, especially early on.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up for the listener. The big takeaways from the 7-day startup seem to be launch fast, learn from real users, focus relentlessly on getting paying customers,
Because that's the only real validation.
and use that 7-day framework as a practical step-by-step guide to just get something out there quickly. Don't wait for perfection.
Exactly. Get it out, then iterate based on reality.
Okay, final provocative thought then, for you listening.
Yeah.
Think about those ideas rattling around in your head. What's one tiny, totally manual thing you could do in the next, say, 24 hours? Something to edge one idea closer to a potential day 7 launch.
Yeah, what's the absolute simplest version someone might actually pay for, like right now? Forget the grand vision for a minute. What's step point 5? That bias towards action, just doing something tangible. That's often the biggest unlock from this whole approach.